Hey VC, it's Jonathan, your cheap and cheerful record collector. I hope everybody is doing well out there today and enjoying the end of summer. It's almost like the beginning of fall here in Maine. This morning we got up, it was like 52 degrees out. Went for a nice long walk and it was like 56 by the time I left the house at 7:30. No humidity, beautiful sunny day, going up to about mid 70s. Doesn't get any better than that. But this video is going to be about my favorite debut albums. I'm not saying the best because everybody's taste is so different. And when you say the best, it's sort of set in stone. Whereas if you say my favorite, then people understand it's what your particular favorite albums are. So these are all debut albums. I didn't set them in my favorite to the most favorite. I set them in year of when they were released. So I started with the earliest release going to the latest. And because I'm an old man, most of my records that you're going to show are from many years ago. But that's okay. First record up, from 1956, one of the great debuts by an artist that people went crazy for at the time, and that, of course, is Elvis Presley. His first release from 1956 called Elvis Presley. This is, I'm not sure, maybe a first pressing, but it's a very early pressing. It's not in great shape. The jacket's all split. The record's hard to listen to because it's so scratched, but I paid $1 for it at a garage sale, so I couldn't say no to it. There's Elvis Presley, his first album from 1956, Blue Suede Shoes, I Got a Woman, Tutti Frutti, Blue Moon, Money Honey. Just changed a lot of things. Or as John Lennon said, before Elvis, there was nothing. I think he's being a little hyperbolic there, but yeah. Elvis Presley, first album, great debut album. Next debut album was from 1965. It's a band that, again, first time I heard the first song on the side, first side one, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And it's a Paul Butterfield Blues Band. Their first song, Born in Chicago, was just a different thing altogether. This from 1965. It has obviously Paul Butterfield, Mike Bloomfield, Elvin Bishop, Jerome Arnold, Sam Lay, and Mark Knapflin. I was lucky enough to see them in 1965 at the Newport Folk Festival. Back then, they used to have during the day, like $2.50 to get in. You walk into the festival, the big open field, and they had stages set up around the field. But the stages were 2-3 feet off the ground, all acoustic, no electricity, and there would be like a bluegrass stage over here, and a topical song stage there, and a work song stage there, and behind the main stage where they had the evening concert, they had a blues stage, and I went over and we saw Son House, Mississippi John Hurt, Willie Dixon and Memphis Slim, but at the end, Paul Butterfield Band came out. They plugged in and they blew the place. Half the people left because they just couldn't. It was a folk festival. They just didn't understand what was happening. And the rest of us ran up to the front and huddled around the stage and were just blown away when they burst into Born in Chicago. But yeah, Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And on the back, and I probably can't read it, but the first time I ever saw this, it says, "We suggest that you play this record at the highest possible volume in order to fully appreciate the sound of the Paul Butterfield Blues Band." And we used to play this at the highest possible volume all the time. So that's 1965. 1966, the next year. Again, this is an album that the quote that went out for years was that they didn't sell many records, but everybody that bought a record started a band. And that was the Velvet Underground with Nico, produced by Andy Warhol from 1966. Again, this is not a first pressing, but it's a very early pressing on, I think it's on Verve. Yeah, the blue Verve. When this came out in '66, nobody knew what to make of it. It was so different than anything we had heard before. Sunday Morning, I'm Waiting for My Man, Run, 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 Heroin, There She Goes Again, European Sun. I mean, really, people in '66 were like, I don't know what the hell this is about. I always enjoyed it, but it was different for the times, for sure. 1967, the next year. I heard this for the first time the summer of '67. I just graduated high school, getting ready to go off to college, and a buddy of mine had it. I went over his house, we played it. And literally our jaws hit the ground because, again, we had never heard anything like this before. And it's the debut album by Jimi Hendrix and the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Hearing it now, after many years, I'm sure people who hear it for the first time now don't think much of it. But when this first came out in 1967, it was mind-boggling. I have to say, everyone knows this album. Amazing record, amazing debut by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Next one is another album that, again, changed things a lot for people. And it was the band Music from Big Pink. I heard a quote from Eric Clapton saying when he heard this when he was with Cream, and he said, "I felt like a dinosaur, that everything he was playing seemed old. This seemed so fresh and new." And it really was the beginning of all that Americana kind of music, roots music, etc. Music from Big Pink, the band, first album, 1968. Also from 68. It's a record most people aren't going to expect to see, or from left field for me. But I love this band, love this album. 1968. The guy who started this band, I knew him from previous band he was in, and I saw him many times. So when I saw he had a new album with a new band, I had to buy it, and I was completely just different than anything else at the time. And it's the debut album by Blood, Sweat, and Tears. This is Child is Father to the Man with Al Kooper, with the horn section and stuff. People hadn't heard stuff like that before. This happens to be a UK pressing, so the back is very different. But right after this album came out, he was going to be at the band was going to be at the Fillmore East. I bought tickets. I went down to the Fillmore East, and when the band came out, there was no Al Kooper. They had already kicked him out of the band, and they had this new singer, David Clayton Thomas, who I really disliked. And after this album, the band was basically dead to me. I could care less about them. But this album, really unique, really interesting, very different stuff. Al Kooper, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, 1968. Very great debut album. The next year, 1969, people who have watched my channel before know I'm really into the blues. I love blues music. And one of my favorite artists put out his debut album in 69, and that's Johnny Winter. Great album with Willie Dixon, Edgar Winter, Walter Shaky Horton doing the harmonica. Just fantastic record. Blues that we knew, but electrified and just really soulful and fantastic album. That's from 1969. Johnny Winter. 1971, 2 years later, a singer-songwriter put out an album. I was, again, blown away by what amazing singer-songwriter, especially songwriter. And that's John Prine, his first album. And this album from 71 has Illegal Smile, Sam Stone, Angel from Montgomery, Donald and Lydia. I mean, you can't get better. Amazing songwriter. Gone way too soon. But what a great, great debut album by the great John Prine. 1971. And we're moving up now. 1977. Debut album. I have two copies of this. I have a European copy and an American copy. This is the European copy, pressed in Holland, and this is the American copy. Similar but different. Most of the songs are the same, but there are a couple of songs that are taken off and added, and the arrangement of the songs are different on both albums. There's the back of them. But love The Clash. Fantastic. Great debut album by The Clash. Again, lucky enough to see them, but it was towards the end of their career. Mick Jones had already left the band, but I still got to see Joe Strummer, so that was pretty cool. The Clash, 1977. And finally, number 10, again from 1977, another one of my favorite bands, another great, great debut album. Talking Heads 77, David Byrne and company. I mean, they were part of the punk scene, but they really weren't punk. They played at CBGB's and all those clubs, but they really weren't punk as we have come to know it. but they were their own thing. And this is such a great album. Love Comes to Town, Who Is It, New Feelings, The Book I Read, A Book I Read, I'm sorry, Psycho Killer, Pulled Up, etc. Great, great album. Great debut album, of course, too. David Byrne and band, Talking Heads. So those are my favorite debut albums. I'd love to see other people's. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but I think it's Mike, MK from Boston, did a video and showed 10 of his favorite albums, debut albums. And just interesting to see everybody's different tastes in music and what they like. I'd love to see someone else's. So if you want to pick up on the thread, I'd like to see everyone else's favorite debut albums by different artists. Okay? If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that little button down below. And until next time, peace.